Hey guys, so I just got finished watching SCOOB. Now, this movie is supposed to be the start to the Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe, and the idea of that, there's just so much creativity there, so many endless opportunities. But did this movie start off the universe with a promise? Let's find out. So the plot is basically the supervillain Dick Dastardly wants to use these 3 skulls with jewels in them to kind of open the gates to the underworld so he can get the treasures within and become rich. But in order to do that, he needs Scooby-Doo because he's the key to the gate, because he's a descendant of Alexander the Great, I think that's what it is. And so basically Dick Dastardly's after Scooby to open the gate. Now, when this movie came out on video on demand during the pandemic, it was obliterated by critics. There were a lot of people that hated it. There were some people that thought it was okay. Where do I stand on this film? Well, I'll be honest. This movie it does more things wrong than it does right, but the things it does right needs to be commended. Now, this movie is not a huge pile of Scooby-Doo-Doo. There are still some great things in it. There are some things that I actually really liked. Now, the obvious one and one of the strongest elements of this movie is its animation. It's wonderfully cartoony. It's energetic, colorful. It just bounces off the screen. This is how to do cartoony animation right. Also, this movie can be funny at times. I kind of chuckled a couple times. We'll get to that in a sec. That's actually a little positive because it's not that big of a positive in the movie. This movie also has a lot of heart. During the end, I actually felt myself tearing up inside, and I was surprised because they managed to make this scene very profound and very tear-jerking, almost like a Pixar film. It's basically when Scoob and Shaggy realize that they both need to put their hands on the lock in order to lock the gates to the underworld, but one of them has to stay behind in the underworld. And it's really sad because, you know, they're building up the Scooby and Shaggy's relationship is inseparable. You know, they love each other with all their hearts. They want to stay together, but, you know, they have to split apart. Now, there's something that happens later, and I'm going to say this. I'm glad they did it, but I'm not so sure it's going to please everybody. But I just love how they handled it maturely. The scene was just so emotional, and you got so sad when you found out that Shaggy had to stay behind in the underworld. It just really impressed me how they handled that scene. They handled it with taste, and I have to commend that. Later on, Shaggy actually escapes the underworld because there was a way out, a retcon, and Shaggy reunites with Scooby later. Now, this is kind of generic because the hero usually makes a sacrifice only for it to be retconned later, and I'm all like, well, what was the point of that in the first place? Also, another huge positive, there are a lot of nods to the Flintstones, leading me to believe that the Flintstones is the next movie in this Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe. Please, Warner Brothers, make your next film the Flintstones. I've been waiting for a CGI Flintstones movie. That would be so awesome, you know? I mean, it has to be. There are like Easter eggs to it everywhere. Sound effects, you know, really hope they do it. Also, some of the characters are really cool, like Dynamite. He was a really cool character, probably my favorite of the bunch. Scooby is his usual charming self, along with Shaggy. Their friendship is so touching. You can tell that they don't want to separate, you know, that their friendship has, you know, it's really strong. You know, it's a true friendship, and you feel for them in this movie when they're having hardships with their friendship. You know, you see the part at the beginning of the movie where Shaggy meets Scooby and he gives him his collar, adopts him, and they basically meet the Mystery Inc. gang after that. It's a very, very good setup for how the Mystery Inc. gang came together, and you know, it just sets up that the relationship between the gang is authentic and genuine. And I really, really admire that. Again, one more time, especially with Scooby and Shaggy, they really sell that their relationship is authentic and genuine. Also, I really like where they take Shaggy in his arc. He actually learns to be a brave hero. I actually really love that, he makes the motivational speech at the end to motivate the gang to save the day. That was new and it was impactful. I was really surprised that Shaggy was the one to be the motivational speaker in that time of darkness for them. Also, a lot of the action is engaging and very cool when they, when Dynamite flies around and they're fighting all these tiny robots. It's very cool stuff. Okay, so now I've talked about all the stuff I like. Now let's talk about the stuff that I don't like. Okay, well, for one, I didn't really feel anything throughout the movie. And most of the characters were one note. Fred, Daphne, and Velma, I felt, were kind of just there. I didn't really feel like they were their usual selves. Velma kind of put me off because, the voice actress, and I'm not trying to criticize the voice actress, but it just didn't sound like Velma. Velma is, she kind of has a nerdy voice, very smart, but her voice was, a lot like Daphne's. Very much a confident, like Daphne's. I'm sorry, I'm doing a terrible job reviewing this movie, guys. This isn't my specialty, so just kind of bear with me, okay? Next review will be better, I promise. Now let's move on to the villain, Dick Dastardly. He really looks like the villain from Dudley Do-Right. He's very generic looking, and he's just not that intimidating. He's not that funny, and he's just very forgettable in the pantheon of Scooby-Doo villains. I mean, he doesn't even compare to villains like the Creeper or Redbeard's Ghost. All of those are much more threatening and memorable. Also, they made a lot of references to real life things that exist, and they also made a lot of references to other franchises. I mean, one was funny, where one of the characters says something about Middle Earth, and Blue Falcon says copyright infringement. That one was really funny, but they kept mentioning things like Netflix. I'm like, really? You really have to cater to Netflix in this movie? Come on. Also, Shaggy makes a very inappropriate joke in a kid's film. He's talking about things he never did in his life, and he said, I didn't drop any F-bombs. I'm all like, really, movie? This is really your joke? You really thought this was appropriate for kids? Also, the Blue Falcon kind of acts like an idiot for most of the movie. He's just always making dumb decisions. So what else? I think that's about it. I wouldn't say Scoob is the worst movie I've seen. I've seen much worse, like Food Fight. But it could have been a lot better. This could have been a great start to the Hanna-Barbera Cinematic Universe. And, if they had just focused on the things that worked instead of trying to make it cool, hip, and modern, that's one of the things. Because Scooby-Doo was it took place much older than, the time we're in now. Trying to make it modern, that kind of feels like you're pandering, and it's going to date the movie heavily. There are a lot of things that keep this movie from being a total waste of time, but it doesn't change the fact that this could have been a great movie. Not a mediocre movie, not a good movie, but a fantastic movie. All I gotta say is, Warner Brothers, please try harder next time. Please, if you make the Flintstones movie, make it good, make it great. Just an improvement over this. If you want to watch Scoob, then go ahead. You won't be disappointed. I mean, actually, yeah, you probably will be disappointed if you set your expectations high. So for that, lower your expectations because you're more likely going to be disappointed, especially if you're a longtime Scooby-Doo fan. This film gets a 5 out of 10. Again, some very emotional, profound scenes, but doesn't change the fact that the movie also has a half that is completely bland and void of any emotion. One more thing before I go, this did have potential. Warner Brothers can make some really awesome movies. This is from Warner Animation Group, the same company behind the Lego Movie. They did great on the animation. They did great on the story for the Lego Movie. They could have totally made a great movie out of this. I still think Warner Animation Group has a chance of building a Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe, but they've got to sink deep into their creativity. They got to really dive into some deep creative ideas instead of trying to be like Marvel, like all of these other studios. That's why they keep failing, because every single studio wants to cash in on Marvel's success, and you're not going to succeed if that's your only intention, okay? You can't make a fantastic, successful cinematic universe by starting off your first movie by setting up that cinematic universe, and that's all you do. You have to make a great movie out of your first movie. If you want to copy Marvel, copy the elements that made Marvel work. Make a good movie, focus on the characters, focus on the plot, and then maybe have a post-credit scene where you're building up that universe, or you hint at a bigger universe like Marvel did. Don't just go all out right away and say, this is what we're building up. This is what is going to happen in the future. Get ready because these movies are coming up. There's something being built up here. Focus on the characters, the story, and everything in the story, and leave the expanding of the universe for later. Okay, I think I've gotten that out. So, what do you guys think of SCOOB? Have you seen it? Do you think it's Scooby-Doo-Doo, or do you think it's underrated? Let me know down in the comments. I'll see you guys later.